Again, if you can hear me, go ahead and raise your hand. There we go. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. So this is our monthly webinar. This is our partner introduction that we do for our new partners. My name is Sean Rogers. I am one of the product managers here at our Anaheim office in California. So today we're basically just going to go through and give you sort of a high-level overview of the products and solutions we offer. If you have any questions as we go through, use the Q&A box. Chances are I'll answer those at the end, but I might be able to answer a few as we go along. So again, if you have any questions as we go through, send them using the Q&A. Do not use the hand raising, do not use the chat. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with a little background on Zyxel. Maybe. There we go. So a brief history on Zyxel. We were founded 30 years ago. We started off in those early days making analog modems for bulletin board systems and then into dial-up internet service providers. Moved on from there to ISDN modems, cable modems, DSL modems. Started making the equipment that goes into the central office for the telcos. So your MSANs, your DSLANs, metro area Ethernet switches. And for at least the last 20 years, we've been making equipment and products designed for the small business market. Our headquarters is based out of Taiwan. Our US headquarters is based here out of Anaheim. We have R&D facilities in Taiwan, in Germany, and in California. We have over 100 million devices deployed out in the field. And we have a little over 1,500 employees out there globally. So we break our products up, and for some reason it's not animating. There we go. We break our products up into 3 different categories. We have the products that are aimed at the service provider, telco space, so DSL providers, fiber providers, things like that. We have our business products, which is what we're going to be discussing today. And then we've got a small lineup of products aimed for home users. So I already mentioned this. We've got R&D set up in US, Taiwan, and Germany. We've got a little over 500 software and hardware engineers and over 150 employees that are employed in various technical support positions. So when we look at our business products, they're broken up into a couple different categories. We have our security appliances, wireless LAN products, switches, hospitality gateways, and our network management software and platforms. So we'll be touching on most of the products that fit into these categories as we go through here today. So we're going to start by talking about our security products. These are broken up into our VPN series, our cloud security gateways, the USG series, and the new ATP series. So one of the cool things here, obviously we're talking about security appliances, so the quality of those security appliances is key. So for 15 years now in a row, we have managed to always be ICSA certified. So ICSA Labs has been around for quite a long time. They provide testing and verification for firewall gateways and for VPN performance and compatibility. So our security lineup is made up of the VPN series, the NSG series, the USG series, and the ATP series. So we'll start breaking those down and going through them for you. We offer what we call 4-tier high availability on most of our security products. So on the OS, high availability basically is set up in such a way that if for some reason a flash, when you're upgrading the firmware, fails, no worries, it will continue using the previously working firmware. So we've got dual firmware support there. We have support for doing multiple WAN connections, failover, load balancing, VPN high availability, and device high availability. So depending on what level of high availability you want, you can use any of these or all of these. So one thing that makes us a little bit different than some of our bigger competitors in the security space is we don't try to be everything. So our focus is on making the security appliance itself. We've outsourced to some of the leaders in the industry for our antivirus definitions or anti-spam, content filtering, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas most of our competition, they're trying to be a hardware vendor, software vendor, and trying to be experts in all these other different categories. So for us, for antivirus, we rely on Bitdefender to provide our signatures that we use to recognize those. On the anti-spam side of things, we work with Siren. For content filtering, we use Siren. For intrusion detection and prevention, we use Trend Micro. And for app intelligence, so the ability to recognize individual applications and create firewall policy rules based on those applications, we use Trend Micro. So application awareness is kind of a cool thing we've got here. So the way it works is we've got a database that's loaded up with over 3,000 different applications and application behaviors. And what it allows you to do is to create firewall rules without needing to know IP addresses, ports, protocols, things like that. Instead, we give you a drop-down menu so you can go in and choose the individual applications and create your firewall rules, whether it's blocking or whether it's QoS, just by that. So we can go in there, we can block Facebook Messenger, for instance. You just choose Facebook Messenger and block it. Or maybe you want to allow Facebook Messenger, but you want to block file transfers through Facebook Messenger. We can do that. Or maybe you just want to block video chatting, and we can do that. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and makes it really easy to create these granular rules for enforcing what goes out through the firewall on an application basis. The other thing we do here is we make it really easy for you to keep track of all of your customers' licenses when they're up for renewal, and making it easy for you to stay on top of that. And we do that by using our My Zyxel portal. This is our new VAR presentation, if you're new to us and you haven't set this up yet, you'll want to go to the My Zyxel web portal, create an account there, and put in a request to be listed as a reseller. Once we do that and approve you as a reseller, all of your customers that you deploy our security gateways on, you'll be able to keep an eye on them through this portal and see what the status of those licenses are. So you can easily keep track of which of your customers you need to reach out to renew their security subscriptions. Okay, on to the hardware. We'll start off with our VPN Series products. So the VPN Series products are security gateways that are optimized for maximum throughput through VPN. So if you don't need the UTM services, the gateway-based antivirus, IDP, et cetera, the VPN Series is probably what you're looking at. So we offer VPN high availability. Offer WAN load balancing, support for multiple WANs, depending on the model, and whether you're doing it as far as load balancing or whether you're doing it as a failover. And we've got built-in wireless LAN controllers. So if you're using our wireless LAN access points, you can manage those all through one box. So it's a single box solution for doing that. So the VPN Series offers what we call flexible hybrid VPN design. So we support SSL VPN, IPsec VPN, L2TP over IPsec VPN. So traditionally, you will use IPsec to connect multiple offices together. You will use SSL VPN for your guys out on the road using their laptops to connect back into the corporate network. And then we offer L2TP over IPsec for mobile devices, for allowing them to get back into the corporate network. So you can offer all three of those simultaneously, no problem. Another cool feature we offer here is that Amazon Web Services, a virtual private cloud. So we are an approved vendor. If you go into Amazon, you'll be able to see that there. So basically, a lot of companies now are hosting their cloud-based applications, even things that wouldn't traditionally be cloud-based, such as a mail server and whatnot, in Amazon Web Services rather than buy and maintain the hardware themselves locally. So the VPC, this virtual private cloud, creates a VPN tunnel from the local office directly to the cloud. So it's basically a seamless interface between the local network and the cloud. So you can see here, if you go to Amazon Web Services, you will be able to find us there, that we are an approved vendor, and instructions on how to get that set up and working there for you. So the hardware portfolio itself, these are our models we've got here. We start off on the low end with the VPN 2S. It's got 3 LAN ports. It's got 1 optional port, which can be used as either WAN or LAN, and 1 dedicated WAN port. Provides firewall throughput of 1.5 gigs, VPN throughput of 35 megabits per second. It does not include the wireless LAN controller. Next step up from that is the USG 20 and 20W-VPN. So these all provide 4 LAN ports, 1 WAN, and 1 fiber port, or SFP port. So you see here the firewall throughput's a little bit less. We're only looking at 350 megs firewall throughput, but you get better VPN throughput, 90 megabits per second. And then going up to the 50 gets you 2 dedicated WAN ports, much better throughput on both the firewall and VPN, and a dedicated AP controller, which can manage up to 36 access points. And then as we go up here, we're just talking increased speeds, both VPN and whatnot. So depending on the speed of your internet connection and the speed of throughput you need, that just helps you decide which you need to use. You can see here with the VPN 300, all of the ports are configurable to use as WAN or LAN. So you can get really crazy with your WAN connections if you want to. Moving on from there is our NSG series. So these are our cloud managed gateways. These are managed through the Nebula Cloud. And we'll go a little bit more in depth on the Nebula Cloud later on today. So we've got 4 models available. The main differences between the models, again, is primarily going to be the throughput. So when you're trying to decide which horsepower of device you need, how fast is your internet connection? And are you going to be using UTM services? So if you're not going to be using UTM services, you can just focus on the firewall throughput. If you are going to be using a UTM, then you'd want to focus on the UTM throughput and compare that to your WAN internet connection and make sure there's enough speed there to cover that. The USG series. This has been around for a long time. This has been primarily our main security model in the past. So the USG series is primarily our UTM products. So these will normally come out of the box with 1 year of all the UTM services bundled with them. And then you have to remove it or renew it after that. So it's got built-in antivirus, anti-spam functionality. It's got the ability to do layer 7-based traffic shaping, application control that we talked about earlier, content filtering. We make it really easy here with the unified security policies. We've got the ability to do geo-IP blocking, so you can automatically block traffic to or from different geo-IPs. So, you know, if you're not doing any business in Russia, you probably want to block stuff from Russia, because any traffic coming in to or from Russia probably isn't something that you're doing business with, or, you know, South Africa or wherever it happens to be. It's a good way to increase security just with a blanket policy. It's got built-in Radius and Active Directory integration. Our content filtering does have the ability to filter encrypted websites. We have what we call Safe Search, which will help block websites' search results. Single sign-on functionality there. We've got Easy Mode, which is a wizard that helps you set up some of the more common functionality in the gateway. Other stuff on here, link aggregation, the ability to manage access points. With a license upgrade, we have a hotspot functionality feature, which gives you full hospitality type hotspot functionality. So we're going to go through the different models here. On the low end, we have the USG 40 and 40W, the W having built-in wireless. The 60 and 60W, again, the W giving you built-in wireless. And then going up from there, the 110, 210, 310, and 1100. And again, as we're going through these, the major differences are going to be the number of LAN ports and the firewall throughput. And then on the high end here, we've got the USG 1900 firewall throughput up to 7 gigabits, UTM throughput with all UTM functionality on there, up to around 710 megabits. So if you're doing, you've got a 1 gig fiber connection and you want to use UTM services, this is the model you want to look at. And something new, we just recently rolled out our ATP series. This is Advanced Threat Protection. So this is a new way of doing security that's different than how things have normally been done. So the normal way of doing security on the gateway has been to use signatures. So we talked about before how we're using signatures from Bitdefender and Trend Micro and whatnot. So basically the firewall looks at the traffic, compares it to a list of known good and known bad signatures that are stored in the cloud or on the local device, and that's how it implements the rules. Unfortunately, it doesn't always catch some of the newer things, so zero-day exploits. It doesn't do or help you out with just traffic or files that are unknown, so there's no signature for them yet, or just strange and bizarre behavior that we haven't seen before. So that's where ATP steps in. So with ATP, this little section of stuff is then offloaded into the cloud. So we call this a sandboxing solution. So basically what it does is it uses a global cloud to link all the different ATP devices, both yours and other ones out there. And when it sees something that it doesn't recognize, doesn't understand, or seems suspicious, it offloads that information to our cloud where it's run through a simulation where it goes through a bunch of different permutations to see what's going on and then share that information and let us know, is this some new app that's completely harmless? Is this something strange that's going on that's likely a type of attack? And it'll help categorize those and push those out to all the other ATP devices out there. This is just showing here sort of a, unknown threat comes in. We contain that, or something we don't know what it is. We contain it and don't let it through immediately. We offload that into our cloud. The cloud emulates a bunch of different computer systems with that traffic to see what that traffic is up to. And if it identifies it as a malicious attack, it will then ban it and let everyone generate a new signature and push that signature out to the other ATPs. If it's something good, it will also generate a signature and then push it out as something that we know is safe. And again, because we're doing this in the cloud, all the ATPs are linked, so it makes it really easy to catch zero-day exploits and almost immediately get that information pushed out to the ATP devices to help protect them. So we've currently got 3 different models of ATP, the ATP 200, the ATP 500, and the ATP 800. All of them out of the box include 1 year of what we call the Global Security Pack, which is the cloud interface and for coordinating and running these simulations. And again, when we're looking at the different models, the primary difference is going to be the port configuration and the throughput that's capable. So again, when you're trying to decide which box you want, that's what you want to do, is look at what your WAN connection is today and what it's likely to be in the future. And make sure you've got enough horsepower on your ATP to not be the bottleneck. So people go, well, what should I buy? Should I buy the USG or the ATP? So we put together a little comparison here for you, what the differences are. So the major difference here, as you see, the ATP provides anti-malware using cloud machine learning or artificial intelligence, however you want to describe it. ATP gives you a botnet filter, it gives you sandboxing, and it gives you the ability to do zero-day IP and URL reputation ranking, which are not available on the USGs. Also, as a general rule, you get much better throughput through the firewall and with the UTM services than with the USG series. Where the USG series shines, though, is with the hotspot functionality. So if you're using this at a hotel or convention center, or maybe just a big business that wants a sort of a more advanced separate guest network, USG might be the better option. The USG does Facebook Wi-Fi, which is good if you're using this in a retail location. So those are the differences between the USG and the ATP. So we'll talk briefly here about security reporting. We have a piece of software out there called Security Reporter. So Security Reporter is used to monitor and generate reports based on what's going on your customers' USGs that you've deployed out in the field. It uses the cloud, so your USG basically uploads its logs and activity to the cloud, and then Security Reporter helps convert that and put that into nice visible reports, either for your own information so you can see what's going on, or something you can share with your customers so you can show them what you've been protecting them from with your USG security appliances. So the idea is just to make it easy to be able to take all that logging information, put it in a usable format for you. So what kind of threats, what was being targeted, when they came in, who the attacker was, if we know where the GeoIP is of where the attack came from. We've also got some other software out there for doing management and monitoring for the USGs in addition to the Security Reporter, which we won't get into today. Now we'll start talking a little bit about Nebula. When Nebula first came out, all it meant was our Nebula Control Center. We've since, under the Nebula name, added in Nebula Orchestrator. So Nebula Control Center is basically our alternative to Meraki for providing unified cloud management of your network. Nebula Orchestrator is our SD-WAN solution for those looking at SD-WAN. So we'll talk a little bit about SD-WAN Nebula Orchestrator first. So SD-WAN is a really common thing or really beneficial for you if you've got a number of different sites that need to be networked together. It's used as a much more affordable alternative to something like MPLS, linking the locations together. So just showing here for small businesses, challenges with traditional site-to-site VPN networks. We got a question, let's see here. So Paul is asking, I'll go ahead and answer this real quick before we move on. Paul is asking here, if you're not using unified threat management on the USG, how does the performance compare between a USG and VPN device? So generally for the money, you're going to get better performance out of the VPN series as far as the firewall goes. It depends on the model. We should have on our website on the data sheets, you can pull those up and see the individual throughput and performance of the firewall. So that's what you want to look at, is the firewall, SPI firewall throughput and the VPN performance throughput. Compare those between the models that you're looking at. Generally, if you don't need those UTM services or don't think you'll need them in the future, go with the VPN series. It should save you money for the same level of performance. But if you think you need those UTM features or your customer, you may want to sell it to them in the future, then stick with the USG series or the ATP series. So anyways, back to the SD-WAN. So, there's more and more reliance these days on cloud, including private clouds, needing reliable internet and dealing with latency between locations, looking for faster connectivity. Your LAN is generally much faster than your WAN, so when you're connecting multiple locations together, that WAN speed tends to be a real issue. Increased security, things like that. Mike is asking if we're seeing more on Nebula, and we are. So right now we're talking about the SD-WAN Nebula solution, and when we're done with this, we'll start talking about our Nebula Control Center, which is sort of our Meraki-like Nebula solution. So we will talk about that once we finish up SD-WAN here. Let's skip through some of this real quick. There we go. So for VARs, looking to reduce complexity, remove bottlenecks, simplify network diversity, et cetera, et cetera. So the solution to that is SD-WAN. So SD-WAN using Nebula Orchestrator, we use a cloud-based solution to make it easy to generate multiple VPN connections between sites. We also use a number of different little tricks here. So we have TCP acceleration, optimized for latency mitigation. We optimize for packet loss. So you see huge increases in the performance over just even a traditional VPN solution. So with Nebula Orchestrator, one of the other things we do here is we're able to monitor all these different VPN connections and be able to detect when one link in that VPN tunnel is having issues, and then automatically create a second link or create a new path direct between locations. So I'm probably explaining that really bad, but the net benefit of this for you is it basically keeps these VPN tunnels up seamlessly. It makes sure that the traffic is always following the best route through your VPN tunnels. And with some of the acceleration and things that we can do and the WAN optimization that we do through the VPN tunnel, it makes a huge difference in performance. And that's really the big takeaway here. So in this case, we're doing a VPN site-to-site tunnel, just a point-to-point VPN tunnel here. We're simulating a real-world environment where there's a little bit of packet loss. You can see it down there, the packet loss, the latency, and the jitter there at the bottom. And we see by using the SD-WAN WAN optimization that we provide through SD-WAN, dramatically change the performance. So instead of taking 2 minutes, 40 seconds to transfer this file, it takes 10 seconds. So it makes a huge difference in time and reliability. So it's really important if you're doing voice over IP between locations or to remote PBX. It makes a world of difference as far as jitter and latency goes. It makes the sound quality dramatically better. And if you attend one of our SD-WAN webinars, things, I believe we've got a simulated environment we show off there, so you can see real world terms the difference. It's a huge difference. So some of the benefits or features here are zero touch provisioning. So basically, you put in the VPN device, and it does all of the provisioning through the cloud. As we talked about before, dynamic path selection, WAN optimization, which is a big, huge benefit here when you're doing these site-to-site connections. We still do content filtering. We have our application intelligence, and we do a dynamic mesh VPN where it automatically creates different VPN tunnels and will seamlessly move traffic through that mesh through different routes based on what it's currently seeing. So SD-WAN functionality uses our existing VPN hardware. So the VPN 50, VPN 100, and VPN 300. So this is a license that you buy, which will convert the VPN device into the SD-WAN device for you. It's pretty straightforward and easy to do. So with Orchestrator, there's two versions. There's a free version and there's the licensed SD-WAN version. So you can see by going up to the licensed version, you get the dynamic path selection, WAN optimization, content filtering, geo-enforcer, which are not included with the free version. Both come with zero-touch provisioning, but the free version is just email and application rule patrol, where the paid version gets your email, app, and SMS. We see here for the monitoring page, the free version gets updated every 10 minutes. Whereas the SD-WAN gets updated every 3 minutes and it offers a 3-second live mode. Log storage, the free version is 7 days. The paid version here is 13 months. And monitoring data, you get 30 days of monitoring data with the paid version. Okay, so that's it for SD-WAN. Now on to the general Nebula. So Nebula is our alternative to Cisco Meraki, we'll say. It's designed to let you manage and monitor your customers' networks. It puts access points, switches, and your security gateway, under a single pane of glass, so it's all monitored there. We make it really easy to keep an eye on all of your customers. So what we're showing on this slide here is what traditionally goes into deploying a network at your customer location. In the areas where moving it into the cloud saves you time and money. So those gray and the blue puzzle pieces there, those are where we save you time and money. So you still got to buy the hardware. Let's see if we can do this. So you still have to buy the hardware. You still have to install the equipment physically, although with going to the cloud, you no longer need to do any local configuration. So you don't need to send someone on site that knows how to configure the devices. They just need to know how to mount them and how to get power and an Ethernet connection to them. The cloud takes care of your monitoring for you. So the cloud automatically stores and gets those logs, generates reports and things for you, so you don't need to buy a separate piece of management software. You don't need to worry about syslogs and things like that. You get easy remote access to all of the devices done through the cloud, so you don't need to worry about opening up any ports. You don't need to be worried about making VPN connections back in for management purposes. The cloud takes care of all of that automatically for you. The cloud acts as your monitoring platform, although if you already have something like Zabbix or SolarWinds, all of our Nebula devices still will work with those as well. But also the cloud itself can act as your monitoring platform, so you don't have to buy and learn how to use one of those if you don't need to. We store the logs and other information in the cloud for you, so you don't need to worry about setting up storage manually yourself. And things like firmware updates, pushing out configuration changes, those are all done automatically through the cloud in a simplified manner. So the main net result here is you're saving yourself time, you're smoothing things out, and you're saving yourself money. So setting up Nebula devices is a three-step process. You need to plug in the device so it has power and an internet connection. You log in either through a web interface or using the mobile app and register the device with your, and then you assign it to a customer location and configure it. And you can do those three steps in any order you want. So even before the hardware has, that you've ordered through a distribution has been delivered to you, you can be setting up the customer location, setting up the main configuration for you. You can scan the devices without even needing to open them out of the box and then ship them out to the customer site and then plug them in. So those are the three steps. Do them in any order you want. It dramatically makes setting up hardware super easy. So all of the devices have a QR code on them. The boxes themselves also have a QR code. So you can use our mobile app to scan the devices in. So we know you've bought them, and then you simply assign them to which customer and which site that customer has. And that's all you need to do. Setting up Nebula is basically everything will, by default, download a sort of stock functional configuration out of the box, which you then customize and tweak based on the customer requirements for you. So it only takes a few minutes to get up and running. Even with more complex installations where you've got a lot of rules, we can use the ability with the paid version of Nebula to clone existing customers or existing sites. So you can just clone over most of the configuration and only need to tweak the few things that might be different for that individual customer. We used to be able to do a live demo, or we can still show it, where basically you can register your Nebula account, set up your hardware, and get everything up and running in less than 5 minutes. So there's no additional software that you need, there's no additional hardware, so there's no controllers that need to be installed locally, there's no cloud keys, there's nothing like that. All of the Nebula-capable devices will automatically reach out to the cloud themselves. So there's no hardware or anything like that you need. All you need is a web browser to be able to manage and see your customers. So you can get access to them and see what's going on at a glance from just about anywhere. We also have our mobile app. It was primarily designed for installers. So it gives you the ability to scan those QR codes in. It gives you the ability as you install the hardware to take photos of the hardware at the install location, which will then be stored in the cloud. So if you have to go on site a year from now or send somebody who's new, you can pull up the app and see where that piece of hardware they need to service, where it was actually installed at. And we've been adding a little bit more reporting and configuration functionality through the mobile app, although for the vast majority of configuration, that'll always need to be done through a web browser. It's just not realistic to do it through a mobile app, but we're constantly improving the mobile app and adding more and more features into it. So Nebula lets you see what's going on with all of your clients and all of their sites through a single pane of glass. So we'll just go through some of the slides here to show you what it looks like. So this is what we call the MSP view. So it's giving you a quick snapshot of what's going on here. So we call your customers, you would put them in there as orgs. So here's all your different customers under the org tab bar here. We show you whether they're using the free or the paid version of Nebula, right through there. So what the status is of the licenses, if it applies. And then we give you a brief rundown here, how many sites each of those organizations has, how many devices they have, how many are online, how many are offline, et cetera, et cetera. So you choose an org, it then takes you to this view here. So you get a breakdown for that customer, all of the different sites they have down here at the bottom. We also show them up here for you on the map. So you can locate the individual customer sites on a map so you can get a quick view of what's going on. And again, same sort of view down here, different types of devices they have, whether they've had any connectivity issues, how many of those devices are online. So then when you click into a specific site, you get taken to this dashboard here. We've got two versions of this dashboard, one for a full network and one that's just focused on wireless. We have a lot of customers out there that are only deploying the wireless products through Nebula. But if you've got everything on there, this is the view you're going to see. So up at the top, you see your customer name, which site you're currently looking at. And then we've got a breakdown here, how many access points are online, any of them that are overloading. Same with our switches, same with the security gateways. We show you how many wireless clients are currently connected to the network. We show you your PoE budget versus what's actually being used, so you can see how close you are to maxing out your PoE budget. Then we've got this cool thing over here for using our NSG gateways, where we show you which applications are using your data. So you can see if you're running into throughput issues or bandwidth issues, somebody watching a lot of Hulu or YouTube, somebody doing BitTorrent, where is all of that data going, and who are the clients that are using all of that data? So we've rolled out starting last year and are continuing to do what's called Nebula Flex. So Nebula Flex is how we're rolling out Nebula to products that weren't designed originally to be used in the cloud. So Nebula Flex products are able to be used the traditional standalone way, or can be used managed through the cloud. So it's an either-or situation, and you can switch back and forth. So you can use something standalone, move it to a new customer who wants to use the cloud, and then switch it into cloud mode, move it to another location later that you don't want to use the cloud on, and switch it back to standalone mode. On our access points, we rolled out what's called Nebula Flex Pro. So Nebula Flex Pro is for our access points that, in addition to being used standalone or cloud, can also be managed using one of our controllers, so an NXC or one of our security gateways. At the moment, when you buy a Nebula Flex Pro product and you decide to manage it with Nebula, it will come with 3 years of our paid Pro Pack version. That's just for this year. Starting next year in 2020, it'll just be 1 year of Pro Pack that's bundled with it. But for the moment, for this year, if you activate it this year, you get 3 years as kind of a promo that we're doing. So to try to explain this for you, so Nebula Flex, those work out of the box with the Nebula Free. They do not include any of the Pro Pack. Nebula Flex Pro include 3 years. And then we've got the dedicated Nebula Series, which is our NAP access points, and those come out of the box with 3 years of the Pro Pack bundled with them. So again, with Pro, at the moment, it's coming with 3 years. If you activate during 2019, starting in 2020, this will go drop down to 1 year. On switches, again, same sort of thing. The Nebula Flex products do not include any of the professional pack licenses, whereas the dedicated NSW switches include 1 year of the Pro Pack. So I want to talk a little bit about the licenses. This is sort of a simplified view of the different types of licenses that are available. So Nebula itself is free to use the Nebula Cloud Management. So that gives you our zero-touch auto deployment where there's no local configuration required. It includes automatic scheduled updates, includes an unlimited number of devices and customers that you can manage through it. So there's no cap, there's no, you can only, manage 4 devices and you got to start paying. It's unlimited devices, unlimited customers, includes our captive portal functionality, Includes the ability to use a cloud database for up to 100 different users, username and password combinations if you want to do some sort of controlled access, et cetera, et cetera. The professional pack is available either as an annual license or a lifetime license. So you buy the license once and it's good for basically forever. So what it gives you above the free version is it gives you a year's worth of logs and client information. It gives you email alerts and the ability to generate and automatically email out reports, whether to yourself or to your customers. It gives you an unlimited cloud user database. It gives you an unlimited number of admin accounts. It gives you a cool thing where we automatically draw the network topology for you. And it gives you the ability to clone existing sites or organizations, to clone those configurations, and gives you the ability to sort of do mass configuration changes across multiple sites. So that's what you get with Professional Pack. If your license expires, it falls back to the free version. So it's not like Meraki, where if your license expires, you basically lose all management capability. So free is default. You pay for the Professional Pack. And then we have our Security Pack, which is the UTM services on the gateway. So you can have just free version of Nebula and the Security Pack, or you can have all three of these going on at the same time. So that's a sort of a high-level overview for Nebula. If you want to learn more about Nebula, we do a monthly Nebula webinar where we spend a lot more time talking about Nebula, the licenses, which hardware does what sort of thing. So if you want to learn more, please join that webinar. I think it's in 2 weeks' time, maybe. So on to wireless hardware. So we've got different levels of management for you. We have the Nebula Professional Pack, the Nebula Free Pack. We have the ability to use most of our access points in a standalone mode with no centralized management. And we have the ability to do on-premise controller, either with our dedicated wireless LAN controller or our single box solution where we pack the controller software into your security gateway or hospitality gateway. So we want to talk really briefly here about Cochannel interference. So if you ever run into the situation where you've got a lot of users on there, you've added additional access points, but you're not getting any better performance. Maybe it's a classroom type situation. You've got an AP in each room, yet you're still dealing with slow speeds. You're not getting the speed and performance you thought you would by upgrading from an older technology to a newer technology. You're finding voice over wireless LAN is really choppy, packets drop out, you get a lot of jitter, et cetera, et cetera. So what is the cause of it? The main cause for a lot of these issues is going to be something called co-channel interference. So basically, when we're dealing with RF, so Wi-Fi 2.4, 5 gigahertz, it's kind of like our old school walkie-talkies. Only one device is able to actually transmit at a time when they're using the same operating channel. So unfortunately, we've got a very limited number of channels that are out there. So you're very likely in the real world going to experience interference, either between multiple access points you've deployed, between your access points and access points in a neighbor's office or a neighbor's apartment. It can also be other devices, since the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz spectrum are shared by things such as Bluetooth, wireless mice, wireless cameras, drones, all sorts of stuff out there. If it's wireless, chances are it's using either 2.4 or 5. And because of the limited amount of spectrum that's out there, there's a good chance it's going to be causing interference. So the traditional ways of dealing with co-channel interference is to turn the power down. So that does help reduce the co-channel interference. Unfortunately, it reduces your coverage area. It also reduces the overall throughput of the network because it harms your signal-to-noise ratio. So it's not the best way of doing things. So the great way of doing that stuff is to use a smart antenna. So right now, only us and Ruckus offer smart antenna technology. So instead of using the traditional fixed antenna configuration, the smart antenna has the ability to go through hundreds of different antenna patterns and choose the optimal pattern for each client. So when we're doing this, we look not only where the client is in relationship to the access point, but we also take a look at RF interference, where those other noise sources are coming from, and sort of tailor the antenna pattern to ignore those areas. So, your traditional access point ceiling mount is going to have this nice sort of round coverage pattern called an umbrella. If you're using the outdoor point-to-point antenna, you're going to have a directional coverage which optimizes the antenna this way. So with smart antenna, we take a look at where that client device is, where other sources of interference might be, and we choose the antenna pattern that's best able to work for that client. And we do it on a per-client basis. And unlike beamforming, this works even with mobile devices, where we can keep changing that antenna pattern as the client moves around or roams around the coverage area. So a few years ago, the University of Brescia in Italy, their networking group, saw our claims, saw Ruckus's claims for smart antenna, and we decided to go out there and test a bunch of products to see if smart antenna really made a difference. You can look there at the bottom. If you go to this link here, that takes you to their full report, where you can look at all their test methodology and the full paper that they put together. Sort of hit some of the highlights here. They compared us, Ruckus, so the two smart antenna vendors. They compared us to Cisco, one of their access points, no smart antenna, and to Aruba, again, no smart antenna. And the takeaway was, in a clean room environment, smart antenna helps, but it doesn't make that much difference. But when you use smart antenna in the real world environment where there's other sources of RF interference going on, it makes a dramatic difference in the sort of throughput that you're going to see in the performance of those networks. So it's a fantastic technology to deploy, particularly in areas where you've got lots of users or you've got lots of RF interference. So classrooms, hotels, conference centers, concert venues, things like that. So just in general, when we're talking about our wireless access points, it doesn't matter if we're talking about our $89 low-end access point, or we're talking about our $500 access points. We have spent a lot of time focused on making the product last and making the product perform. So if you pick up one of our access points and pick up one of our competitors, whether it's Ubiquiti or Ruckus or Meraki, you will feel the difference. So what you're feeling, first off, is some of what we've done to help prolong the life of the product. So when it comes to solid state media like this, there's two things which generally cause failure. So one of the main ones for you is going to be heat fatigue over time. So we've built this giant heat sink into the back of the PCBA to draw the heat away from the PCBA and vent it out the back of the device. If you look at something like a Ubiquiti access point, they don't have vent holes, let alone any sort of massive heat sink to pull that off there. One of the other changes we did is all of our capacitors are solid state. So there's no worry about the capacitor failing over time, which is probably the second most common cause of failure on a solid state device like this. The other thing you'll see that's different here is we have a lot more shielding on the PCBA than our competitors do. So this just helps eke out a little bit better EMI interference blocking, which gives us just that much better signal to noise ratio. The other thing you will see is we mount our antennas on a separate piece of metal, which acts as a giant shield and reflector, where most of our competition is going to mount those antennas directly on the PCBA, where they're more prone to pick up EMI from stuff on the board. So this gets us, in a real world terms, anywhere from a 1 to maybe 3 dB gain in signal to noise ratio. So it makes a big difference on those edge cases between, no connection and a slow but reliable connection. So talking about our access point models now, our NWA 1100 and 1300 series, these are our Nebula Flex access points. These work as either standalone or can be cloud managed. Actually, let's go back here. I do want to point out, if you're doing hospitality installs, our NWA 1302 is a fantastic bargain right now out there in the space. It's purpose designed to mount on a wall plate. Ethernet comes in through the back, through the wall, and you've got a built-in switch on the bottom to run Ethernet out. It does PoE pass-through, so it's ideal for a guest room in a hotel type environment. So you can have Ethernet out going to your set-top box for TV. You can have Ethernet out with PoE to power up a phone in the room and still have an additional port there to provide wired guest access in addition to the wireless guest access. Our dedicated Nebula access points, primarily differences between these. NAP 102 is a basic 2x2. The NAP 203, is a 3x3. And it has what we call dual optimized antennas. So while most access points are optimized to be mounted on the ceiling, we've put in 2 sets of antennas in there, let you switch between them. One set of antennas that's optimized for ceiling mount, one set of antennas that's optimized for wall mount. The NAP 303, which gives you that smart antenna technology we were talking about earlier, and our heavy-duty outdoor access point. Then going up here, this is our 5000 series and our WAC 6103. So these are designed to be used for either standalone mode, Nebula cloud managed, or can be used with one of our controllers. I don't want to go through all of these too much. Right now, the 5123 AC is the only one that supports Nebula, but the rest of these models will be supported by Nebula here end of this month, sometime in July. So that's coming for the rest of these models here shortly. And then on the WAC series things here, the WAC 6300 and 6500, these get you smart antenna technology built in. So just to show here real quick, which models support the built-in wireless LAN controller. So on the VPN series, you can see here 4 out of the box on these guys here, and then maximum 34, 68, 138. The USG series, basically everything USG series has some wireless LAN controller built in, and the ATP series. Just going through this kind of fast. We've got 2 dedicated controllers, the NXC 2500, which supports up to 64 access points, and the NXC 5500, which supports up to 1,000 access points. Okay, that's it for wireless. Now on to switching. So I want to draw attention to our naming. We've got lots and lots and lots of switches out there. So when you're looking at the price sheet or you're pulling up your distribution list, you can tell a lot about the product by looking at the model number. So if it starts with ES, it tells you it only provides fast Ethernet. If it starts with GS, it tells you it provides gigabit connectivity. If it starts with XS, that tells you the switch supports up to 10 gig. If it's XGS, it tells you most of the ports are 1 gig, but there are 10 gig uplink ports on there. And MGS are our metro gateway switches. I don't think we offer any of those in the US. If the model number ends in P, it tells you it provides 802.3 AF PoE. If it ends in HP, it tells you we support 802.3 AT, aka high power PoE or PoE plus. And if it has an F on there, it tells you that all of the ports are fiber. So when it comes to PoE, most of our switches that provide PoE have the ability to intelligently monitor PoE. So instead of relying on the categories that the PoE devices put themselves in, we can look at just what the actual real output power is, freeing up additional power for you. And we have the ability to control PoE on a port-by-port basis and do scheduling. So you can turn off PoE when no one's there. Allows you to say turn off your wireless, for instance, during certain hours when no one's there. So the ability to smartly manage PoE makes a huge difference here. So for instance, we'll take a look at our WAC 6502 D-S smart antenna access point. Based on the PoE spec, it's a class 4 device. So a traditional switch is going to allocate 30 watts of power for each access point that you plug in. However, the WAC 6502 D-S in their normal operating situation only requires 16 watts of power. So by putting it into consumption mode, we're able to nearly double the number of access points you can plug in on the same PoE budget. So we can show here, we have products that start at 60 watts of power and go all the way up to a full kilowatt of power PoE budget. And then we've got everything in between. So we've got a large number of switches to choose from based on your PoE power budget needs. When it comes to the switch series, again, going back to the model numbers, if it's a 1200 series, it's telling you it's got very basic web management. Our 1900 series brings you up into a smart web management. The 1920 series brings you up to a little bit more. So basically, as you go from the 1200 to the 1900 to the 1920, you get a little bit more they're all web managed, but you start getting a little bit more functionality between them as you go up. We've got our new GS1920 V2 series. So these are Nebula Flex. That's the main difference between the V1 and the V2. The 1930 series, which have 10 gig uplink ports, and are also Nebula Flex based, so these can be managed with Nebula. And then we've got the dedicated NSW series, which are dedicated, only can be used with Nebula and include the Nebula Pro Pack. And then going up from there to the 2000 and higher series, this is where we get full management. So the 2210 series gets you all of the functionality of the GS1920 series, plus full CLI for doing scripting, remote management. And there's a couple extra features that are in the 1920, but for the most part, the major difference between the 1920 V2 and the 2210s is going to be the CLI. XGS gets us 10 gig uplink ports. And then we go up to the 3700 series. This is what we call a layer 2 plus or light layer 3 plus. So it allows you to start doing some sort of rules and management based on layer 3 or IP level. 3800 series, sort of same sort of thing. And then we get up here to the 4600 series. That's our true layer 3 managed switch. So that's it for switches. We're almost done, guys. Just really briefly want to talk about the partner program. You are here probably because you just joined. So just a reminder for you, we've got a website for you, vars.zyxel.com, that you can go to. And in theory, it makes it easy to find links to deal registration or trade-up program and other information for you there. So that concludes today's presentation. If you have any questions, anything else you need from us or from your sales guys, you need sales support, you need help plotting out a network and what equipment you need for it, give us a call, talk to your salesperson. If you have any more questions on today's webinar, you can send them in via the Q&A box. And I'll stick around for a few minutes while you type those in if you have any of those. And of course, always feel free to give me feedback on how I did today. You can email me directly, sean@zyxel.com. We're also looking for ideas for you. We're trying to do more webinars, not necessarily product overviews, application overviews, best practices, things like that. But we need your feedback as to what sort of webinars you would like us to generate and provide, so we know what to do that's of interest for you. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording here, but I am still sticking around, so if you have any questions,